Now, Kendrick Lamar is catching heat after deciding to collaborate with Playboi Carti, a move that's currently sparking major debate. This is something we need to talk about because the reactions have been all over the place. Some fans are defending Kendrick, while others are questioning his morality for working with an artist who has serious accusations tied to his name. Is Kendrick in the wrong here, or is he simply separating the art from the artist? I think there's a real conversation to be had here. Just a few days ago on March 14th, Playboi Carti finally released his highly anticipated project, I Am Music. Over the last week, he's been one of the most talked about rappers in hip-hop. Carti has always been an elusive figure, but his fanbase, easily one of the strongest in rap. So whenever he drops something, even people who aren't necessarily Carti fans like myself can't help but pay attention. Aside from the album itself, Carti is also making waves for the stacked feature list on I Am Music. We're talking Travis Scott, The Weeknd, Lil Uzi Vert, Future, and Young Thug, some of the biggest names in the game. But the most talked about feature, Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick appears on 3 different tracks on Carti's album, which is absolutely crazy because these are 2 completely different worlds colliding in a way that no one saw coming. However, beyond the music itself, the most interesting part of this collaboration is the response it's getting. Some of y'all might have already seen the reactions on social media, specifically X, formerly known as Twitter, but Kendrick is actually facing backlash for working with Playboi Carti. Kendrick's morals are being questioned because, for those who don't know, Playboi Carti has a history of serious allegations against him, and I'm currently actually working on a separate video breaking all that down, which will be dropping in a few days of this video going live, so keep an eye out for that. But to keep it brief, a few years ago, rapper Iggy Azalea, the mother of Carti's child, accused him of being a deadbeat father, meaning he neglects his responsibilities as a parent. For my international viewers, deadbeat refers to an absent or irresponsible father. Then, in February 2023, Carti was arrested in Georgia for allegedly choking his pregnant girlfriend during an argument over a paternity test. Despite these allegations, Carti remains one of the most successful rappers today, backed by one of the most intense and loyal fan bases in hip-hop, and co-signed by a lot of very successful artists. But that same success is of course at odds with his past, and many are questioning his character, which is exactly why Kendrick's decision to collaborate with him is sparking so much controversy. Now, putting Carti aside for a moment, Kendrick is at the center of this conversation because throughout his career, he's been an artist known for standing on morals. That being said, he's never claimed to be perfect. In fact, he made that clear on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, specifically on Savior with rapper Baby Keem, where he rapped, "The cat is out the bag, I am not your savior. I find it just as difficult to love thy neighbors." Even with the weight of his influence, Kendrick has always reminded people he's human. But does that justify his collaboration with Carti? That's the real question. The internet doesn't seem to agree, as several takes have gone viral on Twitter. One of the most popular tweets, with over 2.3 million views, put it bluntly: calling a dude a deadbeat for 12 months and then collaborating with the #1 deadbeat in hip-hop is very funny. And the #1 deadbeat is, of course, supposed to represent Carti in his tweet. The biggest reason why Kendrick is facing backlash, it all ties back to his beef with Drake. On Meet the Grahams, probably the most cutthroat diss track in their feud, Kendrick called out Drake for allegedly hiding a secret daughter and being a deadbeat father, though that claim remains unverified. Kendrick rapped, "Dear baby girl, I'm sorry that your father not active inside your world. He don't commit to much but his music, yeah, that's for sure." Kendrick closes the verse with, "And a effing deadbeat that should never say more life." A direct shot at Drake's character, using the title of his own project against him. After calling out Drake for being absent as a father, Kendrick is now collaborating with Playboi Carti, an artist with similar accusations against him. Now for Carti, it's even kind of like worse because there's obviously like some weight to the claims of him being a deadbeat, and that obviously goes back to Mrs. Iggy Azalea. Now the mother of Carti's child, Iggy Azalea, actually did walk back her deadbeat claims at one point, only to later double down on him again and again. She didn't just accuse Carti of being an absent father. She also claimed that he skipped the birth of their son to go to Philly and play video games with Lil Uzi Vert instead.
This man didn't even come to see his son be born. He went to Philly to play the PlayStation with Lil Uzi.
And that's a crazy claim right there. I mean, imagine going to Philly, just to play video games where you can like be with your son. But then again, that's a claim that, Iggy Azalea made. So I don't really know if it's true, but a lot of people have kind of already bought into that as the truth. Now the question is, was Iggy lying or telling the truth? We'll break that down in my upcoming video about this topic where I'll dive deeper into the details. Now Kendrick Lamar's issues with Drake were of course personal and not necessarily a broader moral stance. But at the same time, considering the kind of artist he's been viewed as, it makes a lot of sense why he's getting backlash for what many see as contradictory behavior. Now this isn't actually the first time Kendrick has co-signed an artist, whether verbally or through his actions, despite them having questionable actions against them. Now the most recent example is Kodak Black. Back in 2022, after a 5-year hiatus, Kendrick Lamar dropped Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and Florida rapper Kodak Black was featured on his project, a move that quickly sparked controversy. Now, I covered this story back then, and Kendrick faced major backlash for working with Kodak due to his history of allegations, and now, with this Playboi Carti situation, many are calling him out once again. Now, regarding Kodak Black, for anyone who's not aware, Kodak Black in the past has faced serious allegations involving an underage girl. Back in 2016, a teenage girl accused Kodak Black of attacking her in a hotel room after one of his shows in Florence, South Carolina. According to investigators, he allegedly bit her on the neck and chest and forced himself on her, despite her telling him to stop. The girl later reported the incident to a school nurse, who then contacted the police. Kodak was originally charged with rape, but in April 2021, he took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to first-degree assault instead. Now, this case was highly controversial, and many felt that Kodak essentially got off with a slap on the wrist, especially given the severity of the allegations, which involved a minor. Long story short, Kodak moved past the case, kept pushing his career forward, and remains successful to this day. Then, over 12 months later, Kendrick decided to feature Kodak Black on his album, which led to major backlash. Many criticized Kendrick for co-signing an artist with such serious accusations tied to his name. Aside from co-signing Kodak Black, Kendrick Lamar also publicly supported rapper XXXTentacion back in 2017. XXXTentacion, also recognized as Triple X, was of course a rising star in hip-hop who was tragically gunned down in 2018 after being stalked from the bank to a motorcycle shop where his killers ultimately cornered him. Despite his success, X left behind a highly controversial legacy, largely due to the serious allegations made against him by his ex-girlfriend Geneva, who accused him of horrific abuse. I actually dropped an almost 40-minute deep dive the other day, breaking down everything about this particular situation. It's a phenomenal watch, and I highly recommend checking out that video after this one. Maybe while you're eating that meal that you got in front of you right now, because obviously you're not going to finish it, okay? Trust me, you'll not regret it, okay? Definitely check out that video. Link is also in the description below. In 2017, after the release of his album, 17, Kendrick Lamar randomly took to Twitter to promote X's album. Not only did Kendrick publicly promote XXXTentacion's album, but his team also personally reached out to Spotify's top executives, including CEO Daniel Ek and their head of artist relations, to push back against a policy that threatened to remove X's music from the platform. This policy was a part of Spotify's new hate content and hateful conduct policy, which went into effect on May 10, 2018. As part of this, Spotify announced that it would no longer promote R. Kelly's music on its editorial or algorithmic playlists, although his music would still remain available on the platform. But R. Kelly wasn't the only artist impacted by this policy. XXXTentacion was also affected, which led to Kendrick's team stepping in. They warned Spotify that if they followed through with banning X from their playlists, Kendrick would pull his own music from the platform. So this particular thing, I guess, is something that Kendrick has faced backlash for over the years. A lot of people argue that, Kendrick doesn't always stand on the morals he preaches, which to a lot of people feels contradictory given his reputation as a conscious rapper. Now, there's a couple key aspects to this conversation, and the first one is this. Kendrick is not a saint, okay? He's not some morally superior figure floating above everyone else. In reality, he's a man fueled by strong emotions, especially hatred and anger towards people he doesn't like. Drake. And to be clear, I'm not, bringing this up to defend him under the whole, he's not your savior argument. Quite the opposite, actually. I think Kendrick needs to stop being put on a pedestal because he's a normal human being. I've always been open about my support for Kendrick Lamar. I've been following his career since way before he first started gaining worldwide buzz in 2011. And while I always give him his flowers and recognize the great work he's done, I don't believe he's above criticism. Not at all. And I say this as someone who does actually, fuck with Kendrick, right? But at the same time, I have no problem calling out the other side of things. At the end of the day, he's just a man like anyone else. He bleeds, he has his own biases, and he's not above criticism. In fact, one thing I respect about Kendrick is that he doesn't really shy away from exposing the not so pretty sides of himself in his music. That being said, when it comes to Kendrick, he doesn't always face strong pushback on his character. And that's largely because he's extremely authentic in how he presents himself. And on a personal level, Kendrick has never done anything that crosses the threshold of what's considered unacceptable to stand by. He's never been accused of actively harming children or women, and he's never really been caught in the act because, that's not really who he is. Aside from an unverified claim made by Drake on the diss track Family Matters, where he alleged that Kendrick beat on his queen. However, there is no proof to support that accusation. Beyond that, Kendrick is a family man and a role model to countless kids, both in his family, his community, and around the world. Now, with that being said, for anyone who's listened to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Kendrick was extremely open with things that he's not so proud of. As an example, on a song, Worldwide Steppers, he rapped, "Next time I effed a white bitch was out in Copenhagen." And then on a song, Mother I Sober, he famously admitted, "Intoxicated, there's a lustful nature that I failed to mention. Insecurities that I project, sleeping with other women. Whitney's hurt, the pure soul I know, I found her in the kitchen." Or on United in Grief, where he told the story of meeting a woman in Chicago, forming an emotional connection, and ultimately sexing the pain away. So Kendrick has been very open about the things he's not so proud of in his music, and I really respect him for that. I think that's very honorable. Now, when it comes to Kendrick collaborating with Carti, it seems like he's prioritizing the musical relationship over the controversies surrounding the person behind Playboi Carti. At the end of the day, this is the music industry, where relationships are everything. Even someone as successful as Kendrick relies on aligning with artists like Carti, who speaks to an audience Kendrick himself can't fully reach, to keep the momentum of his career going. Now, personally, I don't really agree with it because, if we're going to criticize Drake for being a deadbeat and shun him, then what makes Playboi Carti, any different in that regard, right? Regardless of, whether the allegations are true or not. I don't think this is really about Carti or Drake as much as it's about Kendrick himself and how much he truly stands on what he claims to be. And in a way, I think situations like this are very important because they force people to reevaluate the illusion of Kendrick as some picture perfect figure, which he's obviously not. He's just a regular nigga like me and you, right? One of the biggest issues with a guy like Kendrick in relation to how the world views him is that he's done an incredible job of presenting himself as someone who remains morally intact, someone who kept his soul despite all the success. And that's not to say that, he hasn't done that, in this case, kept his soul in pursuit of getting to the level he's at. But the issue is when it comes to a guy like Kendrick, it's almost to, the point where people struggle to see his flaws as a person. The reality is Kendrick has plenty of his own biases. For him, he's just someone who naturally leans towards the good side of being a human rather than the bad. And let's be real though, he's fully aware of how the world perceives him. Kendrick is an introspective, highly intelligent guy, so there's no doubt he knows exactly how he's being viewed. So when Kendrick is facing criticism like this, I bet, this is what, I bet he's thinking, right? He's kind of like looking at it and he's saying, wait, y'all thought I was this person? No, I'm really this person. Kind of making a point that, hey, you guys think I'm, this really holier than thou person who's like on top, but really not. I'm just regular, right? I'm just someone who's flawed. And the thing is about this particular story, I can't say that it's not hypocritical because if we're looking at it objectively, in my opinion, I think it absolutely is. And you know what? I don't think it's wrong for people to analyze Kendrick's actions and ask themselves, is he really who he says he is? At the end of the day, as both an artist and a human, people are going to judge you based off of your fruit, i.e. your actions. And if those actions don't align with the morals you claim to stand on, then it's only natural for the world to form their own opinions about who they think you really are. Anyway, if you made it this far, drop a like on this video for me, okay? If you're new here, my name is Blackie Speaks. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the family. Thank you for subscribing. What do you guys think about this Kendrick backlash right here? You guys think that Kendrick is hypocritical for, collaborating with Playboi Carti despite the fact that he called Drake a deadbeat? Really curious to hear what you guys have to say, okay? Catch you guys in the comment section below, but most importantly of all, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.